This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. This is the Lansing Online News Radio Show with Bonnie Bucqueroux and Bill Castanier. Tonight's show, we're going to explore a wide variety of different issues about really things of major importance in the community. We'll be starting off with Joan Nelson with Allen Marketplace talking about food issues in the community. Then we're going to talk with Barb Swartz about Alzheimer's and some of the warning signs. And we're going to close the show with Ben Hassinger telling us about Mighty Uke Day, which I somehow keep adding an extra mighty and make it Mighty Mighty Uke Day every time I think about it. And we have a flurry of ukulele players in the community. So that'll
Well,
be
two
fun.
years ago, 2 years ago, I went to one of those.
Yeah, you did.
I had no clue that many people played ukulele.
And you had no clue what a strange instrument the ukulele really
Can
is.
be, right,
Yes.
right. It was a lot of fun, I have
It
to
is.
admit. And they do it all over Old Town,
Yeah.
and it's cheap entertainment.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So we'll be closing with a few ook tunes, I assume. But there is a
Ook.
fundraiser coming up that we need to talk about.
Yes, tomorrow night is the Historical Society of Greater Lansing's spring fundraiser, and it is a tour of the Herman House, which is on the campus of Lansing Community College, and the Rogers Carriers House, which is right next to it on Capitol Avenue. They're, what makes these houses unique is they're 19th century, and Lansing does not have very many 19th century
Yeah.
homes left.
Yeah.
We did a really good job in the 60s of tearing most of them down. So it's a unique time to see houses that were built in that era and how people lived in them. And the Herman family in particular is interesting because they came here in 1870s, built probably the largest tailoring shop in Michigan, and they were famous for their bespoke suits, which I just learned that word from Valerie, as you can imagine.
The Brits use it all the
Yeah,
time. We
bespoke.
tend not to use it.
I can see why,
Yeah.
because I didn't know what it was, but it means a suit designed especially
Basically custom.
custom suit.
Yeah.
And they did something unique. They sent people around to other communities and measured them and then sold suits that way. So they weren't limited just to Lansing. They put people on the road, like to Chicago and things, and they'd rent a hotel room for a week and measure people and make suits for them. But he built it into a 35 men tailoring operation, and it lasted until about 1965. So it was 3 generations, which is
I remember my father ordering some suits from Hong Kong that were custom made. I mean, you could do that. Custom tailoring was always a big thing for the elite classes, but it doesn't seem to be. I mean, nowadays it seems to me that you want to be wearing a Zenga rather than to have someone make one for you, right? Is that
right. There's not much custom. There's nothing in Michigan. There might be something in Detroit, but there's not much of that anymore at all.
But the house is still in good shape?
Oh, the house is in perfect shape.
Oh,
That's the
great.
one the LCC restored.
Oh, I remember
The
that.
lesson they learned, everyone probably should learn, is don't let a house deteriorate.
That's true. Houses do need people in them, and they need to breathe, don't they?
They sure do, and they need upkeep every year, because if you let the slightest little leak go, it becomes a major problem 40 years later,
Yes, it
or
does.
sooner.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's going to be what time and where?
It's at 6 o'clock at the Herman House. Walk-ins are welcome, but it is a ticketed event, of course.
What is the street address
It
of that
is
house?
520 North Capitol.
520 North Capitol.
Right.
So if people roam down Capitol Ave,
It's
they'll find it.
it's easy to find. It's the two houses on the east side that are restored and look out of place.
Ah, okay.
One's Victorian. So.
And this is your major fundraiser?
No, it's not. This
No?
is a small fundraiser.
Small
This
fundraiser.
is the spring one. The major fundraiser is the auction in the fall,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
which
huge.
everybody could guess, but I can't say where it's going to be.
Oh.
Probably the place that everybody wants to get into in Lansing.
Oh,
We'll know Wednesday for sure.
It's not a cemetery. People are dying to get in there.
No.
That's the old joke, right?
Yes. And we do cemetery tours too,
I
as
know
you
you
know. Yeah, it's pretty fun. in a
Well, maybe
strange
next
way.
week you'll be able to announce.
I hope so.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, we're going to switch gears and talk now about what is going on in our new Allen Marketplace. I was just there with the Lansing Historical Society. Joan Nelson hosted an event there for the society where famous restaurateurs from the past came and talked about everything from Jim's Tiffany Lounge to Amels. Amels was fascinating. That's when we found out. I was taking some video and we found out that Al Capone was a regular visitor to Amels. And what was the important thing about where you put Al?
Oh, you put it
Back to the wall.
Back to the wall.
right?
If
Because
somebody was there, they moved them.
Yeah, and they didn't. I guess when Al Capone asked you to be moved, you didn't say no. So he got any seat he wanted in the house. That was quite fascinating. It was
I had
great.
heard that story before, but it was great to hear it
Uh,
from the person that probably knew more than the rumors I had heard. So
oh wow, yeah, that was great. And so who else? Oh, and Nick Gavrilis was there from the Soup Spoon. So that
Yes,
was quite a crew.
it was great. Past and current restaurateurs on Michigan Avenue, and
Yeah,
they were all about 20 years apart in age. And
that's right. They
Mr.
were.
Blahakis is in his what mid 80s,
oh yeah.
and Paul Greskel probably close to 60, and Nick's just a young 40 something, right? So,
Yeah,
and it was interesting to me to hear about what's still the same, you know,
true. There's
years and
still the
years later.
battle
Right, right.
to put fine dining on Michigan Avenue.
Exactly, and still an interest in buying local.
Yeah,
I was happy to hear that, as a
yeah.
matter of fact. That's one of the areas of concern in our New Ellen marketplace. We have a program called the Exchange,
Yes, tell us a bit more about the exchange.
and the Exchange is the program that links growers in mid Michigan and within 50, 75 miles of Lansing to commercial and institutional buyers. So to restaurants and caterers and hospitals and schools, grocery stores, in fact. And so we actually began to unfold the exchange in the early fall last year. And after having worked on it, setting up the allenmarketplace.org, the web-based ordering system, in the months prior to that, and it's been an interesting process. We now have about 60 people, 60 growers or food producers signed up. They're registered with the exchange, and we have about 35 or 40 buyers. And the way it works is that growers who are members of the exchange log on by Sunday night at 5 o'clock and they list everything they have to sell. And the buyers log on by 7 p.m. on Monday evening and actually purchase right online. And then farmers have Tuesdays to gather it together, package appropriately, and then on Wednesdays during our farmers market, uh, they they drop it off and buyers pick it up. So it's convenient in that many of the growers involved in the exchange are also members of our farmers market. So we do this at the
Ah,
same time, right? So the farmers market is Wednesdays, and so growers that are members of the farmers market will just simply stop at the exchange table on the way in, drop off their bags, and continue to their table to vend during the market. And it means that buyers, when they come to pick up, can have easy access to the growers if they have any questions or concerns, as well as take a look at uh, the products, both produce and meat and cheese and other kinds of products available in the market that they might want to consider purchasing.
one of the challenges with the whole farm to fork movement has been the fact that there are, especially growers in Michigan, where your growing season is limited. You can extend it
Yes,
with hoop houses, but it's still a
yes,
limited season. Is that you get this glut of product at one time and nothing the rest of the year. And a lot of places like universities, hospitals, large users, they can't accommodate that. I mean, they have a regular
right.
supplier, and so how do you try to even out the flow?
It really, well, it is very seasonal, and so you can, because so many growers are using hoop houses these days,
Mhm.
what you can do is extend the season on one end and start early on the other. So
Maybe not
two,
so much this year, though.
I know this was a tough year.
Yeah,
This was a tough year. We're a few weeks behind,
yeah,
but we've had greens now for several weeks
yeah.
at the farmers market, hoop house grown greens, obviously, and we had lots of root, vegetables late into the fall, potatoes and squash and whatnot. Um, but we also have lots of other food items. We have Stone Circle bread and the
Ah,
Honey Guy and
ah.
Hickory Knolls Creamery, which has wonderful cheeses, award-winning cheeses, the incredible goat cheeses and chèvres, and he has also ground goat and several other interesting
Ground
items.
goat. Oh,
Yeah,
whoa.
and so
We
they're
vegetarians.
American Delicacies is there, and they're a foraging outfit, and they have lots of really fun and fascinating mushrooms, and
Oh,
and
wow.
Titus Farms and Urbandale Farms. So we're it feels pretty lively and pretty full to me, and the market is a happening as much as it is
Yeah.
a grocery shopping excursion. It's
Oh, that's
you
what
know
it used to be when I said it's when we had a city market.
Yeah. Do you remember that back
Oh
in the
yeah, where you
day?
just go down there and hang around because that's
Yes,
where everybody
it was
went
a
Saturday morning.
yes. And so we have, we always have music. Jen Siggett was there just a couple
Oh,
of weeks
great.
ago, and
Yeah.
it had some Matt LaRusso's a jazz duo there last week, and so we have music, we have kids activities, we're making soup these days because we have this wonderful commercial kitchen
Right.
inside the Allen Marketplace, which houses the winter market now. And so we sell soup with stone circle bread, and people sit at tables in the center of the
Oh,
room. And I mean, so there's really lots of opportunity for people to relax and catch up with neighbors and enjoy themselves and just celebrate, good food, local food. And there are what a lot of people don't understand is that Mid-Michigan actually has a pretty rich agricultural
we're the second
sector.
most diverse state behind California.
Yes, well, actually, Michigan, you're right,
Yeah,
is
and if
second
we
only
were,
to California in product diversity.
yeah,
But even in mid-Michigan, and people think mid-Michigan, the greater Lansing metropolitan area, and they think the state government, they think MSU, maybe think insurance and a couple of other things. But what they don't think is farming. And in
right.
fact, this is a really quite rich agricultural area as well. Our exchange works primarily with small to medium-sized farmers. The big guys don't need our help, right? But small farmers, need some assistance in getting smaller amounts to bigger institutions. So, for instance, we recently hosted a meeting with a local hospital um, that is really determined to hit that 20 by 20,
Uh,
benchmark that's been set out by the governor and by the Michigan Hospital Association. And they,
20%,
yes,
by
20%,
1920.
right.
I bet 2020.
And they, the
Just 100 years old.
the folks from the hospital presented their, shopping list for the year and identified by month what they usually purchase and what quantity and what quality and price point. And we had 9 farmers there. And so they were able to really, I mean, this was actually in late January. So that's the time when farmers begin to develop their crop plans and figure out what seeds they're purchasing. And so it really increases the likelihood that smaller farmers will have a customer in a large hospital. So this whole process is very new. It's there are about half a dozen food hubs. We
Right.
call ours the Exchange, but there are about half a dozen in the state, and we're all supported by Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development. And
Mike Ham of MSU was very supportive.
and
The Good Food
yes,
Initiative is
Mike
trying
Ham
to,
has been a real leader nationally, actually,
yeah,
not just in Michigan or mid-Michigan, but he's a huge cheerleader for locally grown, state-grown foods
but
and
in
supporting
the
that.
computerized system that you have, what I've never been clear of is that is there any room for haggling? Because one of the things that usually happens is that depending on, I mean, who sets the price then? Does the farmer, when they post, do
The
they post the
farmer
price?
sets the price, and the way the thing works is that uh, there is no room for haggling, but you can come to the farmers market and haggle there if you
I
like,
see. Okay.
but because you're face to face, or talk with the farmer maybe about a special order. But you know, the farmer sets the price, and we estimate that if the farmer's selling wholesale, they'll get 65 cents or so on the
Right.
dollar. If they're selling it to you at our farmers market, as a retail customer, they'll get a dollar for a dollar. They'll get about 82 cents on the dollar by going through the exchange. So
Really?
so that's still, it's still better than retail. And it means that they don't have to stand behind a table for 6 hours it's a guaranteed sale.
Right, they consider their labor
Right.
free too many times.
Mike Ham, it's interesting you should bring him up because several years ago, I heard Mike speaking, and he was saying that by 2020, a huge proportion, something like 80% of small farmers in mid-Michigan would have disappeared. And that happened early in like the 2000s, maybe 2005 or so. And interestingly, when we started our farmers market back in 2004, we were one of 3 markets. There was a city market and Meridian market. Now there are 26 markets in mid-Michigan, and that seems to have stopped the disappearance. It's slowed things down in any case. And now we have many venues for farmers to sell at markets. And in fact, in mid-Michigan, a farmer, if he or she wanted to, could vend every day of the week at a market someplace. But if they're doing that, when are they growing food, right? So the nice thing about the exchange is that it's a guaranteed sale. It's food that they're selling that they won't have to stand behind a table for 5.5 hours, to sell. So we're excited about the exchange. It's a slow grow. Um, we're actually it's open to individuals as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there are minimums that need to be purchased, obviously, but it is open to individuals. And we have our first buying club, Andy's Club. It's a group of NEC employees who actually all
Ah.
together purchase as a club.
Hmm.
So lots of interesting
Hmm.
possibilities
So
for
they
the
go pick it up
exchange.
and then take it back and distribute
And
it
yes,
individually.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Joan Nelson of the Allen Marketplace. And one interesting thing that I've been reading about lately is this idea of food miles. Your hub saves part of that problem because what
Sure
we're
does.
really finding is that it used to be where you wanted to shop locally because of the food miles on the food. Then they realized if everybody is driving to the farmer's market and then making separate trips to the grocery, then maybe that isn't as efficient, and all of a sudden you're adding back to the food miles. So your hub solves part of that.
It solves part of that. In addition, ours is we serve people throughout mid-Michigan, both through the exchange, obviously, but also through the farmers market. And we're a little different in that we're a neighborhood. We're place-based. About 50% of the people in our market at any given moment are from the east side, are from 48912. And that's been the case since 2004. We do a dot survey twice a summer to find out where people are coming from. We also ask how they got there. Did they drive?
Wow.
Did they carpool? Did they bike? Did they walk? And little by little, the number of walkers and bikers has been increasing. And so I think that there are a couple of different ways in which we might be reducing food miles. So, and the farmers market, speaking of that wonderful market,
Yeah.
we've had this winter market. We brought the farmers market indoors the first Wednesday in November in the fall for the first time in our 10-year at that point market history. And so we've had this delightful scaled down winter market all winter long. And we have 2 more weeks of the winter market. And then we are back outdoors, our big sprawling market in the large parking lot on the west end of the complex where the neighborhood center and Allen Marketplace are located. So we got a full house. We think we have a new food truck coming that we're going to introduce.
Oh, you do?
Yep, can't tell you anything more than that.
Ah.
And a couple of
I
other
like those food
ready
trucks.
to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, I do too. I love food trucks.
Did you see the one that's over on, it's at Oakland and Cedar? I think it is the corner right there.
Yes.
That's the
Pizza,
wood-fired
the pizza.
pizza.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's quite
wow.
an
It's very
operation.
exciting. It's very
Chop down
exciting.
fruit trees on the way.
It's pretty exciting, and I think we're going to see several more over the summer. We have been having conversation with a couple of different people who are interested in starting a food truck and are wanting to use our kitchen as the commissary. So
Oh.
our kitchen, which brings me to our
Yes.
kitchen, we have this wonderful commercial kitchen and fully equipped, and it's rentable, by food entrepreneurs, people that want to create a value-added
Before they had to
product.
go all the way up to Hart, Michigan. That
Hart,
was
Michigan.
the closest.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now we
Or
have,
a church,
Yeah.
but most of them weren't certified.
yeah, no, most churches are not. Incubake in Holt is certified, and the Allen Marketplace Kitchen, and so it's available for rental. Our first renters, our first, it looks like our first anchor tenant is going to be a microbrewery, in fact.
Yeah. That's
And they'll be renting the kitchen 2 days a week, and then renting this separate space attached to the amp as a fermentation room. So that's going to be pretty exciting. And
Nick
but
Avrilides of Souspoon was very
excited about
forward
that.
thinking about the fact that between craft brewed beers
Yes.
and homegrown fresh food, the
Yes.
opportunities for really building up the restaurants on Michigan Avenue, he thinks
Is very significant.
Yeah.
We're really hoping that what comes of all of this food related activity and the kind of catalyzing influence, of the AMP is the development of a food innovation district. Between Michigan and Kalamazoo, lots more restaurants, pop-up restaurants as well, and small shops. And microbreweries and bakeries and, food co-ops and whatnot. So we'll see how that all shakes loose. But in the kitchen, what we're also doing is offering classes in culinary
Oh,
skills.
really?
And we just began our first round. It's a 9-week long, a 9-session class. And there are 2 tracks, and one track really is a culinary job skill training track. And
Okay. Yeah.
folks who are in that track will take 7 workshops plus 2 very long half-day sessions on ServSafe, and then take the ServSafe certification test. And then Jim Long of Sparrow Hospital has uh, has has said that anybody who passes that certification gets a 2-week internship in their hospital cafeteria.
Oh, that's great.
It's very good. It's dry in here.
It is. And it's also allergy season. I must tell everybody
Right.
that.
So, but other people are just interested in taking the sessions because each is a standalone workshop. Taken all together, they teach the basics of culinary skills, but the standalones are being very popular. So I believe it's this week. The topic is soups, stocks, and sauces, and it is taught by Nick Gavrielides
Oh,
and his
wow.
lead chef.
Oh,
And then
that's
we have,
fantastic.
oh, it's wonderful. We had Sarah Filius, the farm manager of Urbandale Farm, who it was trained as a chef, did fruits and vegetables, how to choose them, how to use them.
Huh.
And then last week we had Pam Gower, formerly the deli manager at Foods for Living, do foundations, grains, pasta, beans.
Wow.
So they're very fun. And we're really tapping the local talent. These are really very interesting. And we're going to do this pretty continuously. We'll have lots of fun workshops in
Now,
that
do
kitchen.
people get hands-on when they come there? So
Oh,
that-
they sure do.
Oh,
The culinary job skill piece and the workshops. I mean, we when we designed the AMP, you recall that we have that big classroom
Yeah.
adjacent to the kitchen. So during those classes, we have 15 to 20 people, streaming back and forth between the kitchen and the classroom
I've got
throughout the
a
session.
quick question. I'm always like a year ahead on things, but Whole Foods is going to open here.
Yes.
They do a lot of the same things you're talking about.
Do they do local?
Yeah, they do. They're big. That's what I was wondering if
Are
it
they?
would be worth.
Are they? I've heard. I don't know. I
It'd
don't
be
know.
worth getting in touch with them.
Oh,
'cause
we sure will. We
so
sure
I bet
will.
there's a cross relationship with them.
We are definitely going to be getting in touch with them. We're getting in touch with grocery stores as well. I mean, if you look at the national data about food hubs, actually, the largest purchaser of locally grown food from hubs are grocery stores. I think it runs about 40%. Restaurants, caterers, about 20%. Large institutions, schools and hospitals, are about 4%. So it's very interesting. Those grocery stores are, you know, is essential, I think, for the success of a food hub, and by extension will really increase the likelihood of success for small farmers.
some of us take a dim view of the changes coming with whole paycheck moving in. And
Oh yeah, I do too.
the
in some
market
ways.
fresh moving in, and yes, I'm
And
a little concerned.
and
with-
our favorite Trowbridge
yes,
grocer possibly closing down. I know. It's a really dynamic field right now, isn't it? This
It
whole
is.
food piece. It's lots of changes, lots of moving pieces.
We're
and-
Well,
really
you seem to
fortunate-
be on the right track in what you're doing here, though.
well, I think we're fortunate to have Joan in the community to analyze these things as they occur, because really, I mean, food is much more complex than people
Yes, it
realize.
is.
And
Yes, it is.
you can't just make one simple change in one part of the system without having huge ripple effects that can cause all sorts of other dislocations.
The thing to keep in mind is that it's thank you so much for those kind words, but the fact is that Lansing has a very dynamic food movement.
Yes.
And what's happening on the east side is also happening on the west side. It's happening on the south side. There are half a dozen markets, I think, just in Lansing alone. There are community gardens. The Webster Farms, is that what it's called? That Kathy Dunbar runs out on the south side. The land bank has given out lots of land in Urbandale,
Yes.
in the lowest elevations. In fact, Urbandale Farm is located there, Floodplain Farm is located there, Learning Leaves, there's several.
And this movement really happened fast here, in some
Well,
ways.
and not only that, I mean,
10 years,
Yeah, yeah,
probably
to
the
me
last
that's-
10
I mean,
years,
it's
last
just like
decade.
that.
I
Yeah.
think it was, and I'll be honest about it, I think it was your dogged determination that made it happen, because you really set the benchmark. The Allen Street Market, I think had so many things going against it. It was so difficult to make all of those things come together because nobody had a vision yet of what could be. That you couldn't point to very many places that said, here in an urban setting we can do this.
Well,
I didn't think it would work,
Yeah.
except
no.
when I found out you were doing it. I really didn't. I think, wow, how could this work?
Well, we 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 thought it we like we do everything, we put a toe in. And that first year we did a 10-week, not 26-week, but a 10-week market, and we had 4 farmers, all women, interestingly.
Yeah.
And we had 138 people every Wednesday in a 3-hour period. And it was enough so that it confirmed for us that we should do a full season market the next year. And the other thing that happens is that we had a wonderful market manager. I don't know if you folks remember Holly Hamill.
Yeah.
And we listened to the community, and people approached Holly all that summer and asked her if would say to her, God, it would be really nice if you folks took food stamps, right?
Right.
And so
place.
Holly called the FNS, Federal Nutrition Services folks, and just to let them know, just to give them a heads up that she'd filled out the application, and she figured that every liquor store in East Kalamazoo took food stamps. Surely this upstanding little nonprofit should be approved. And so she called to give them a heads up, to say that she'd left some pieces blank, and had this wonderful conversation. And the woman said, well, nobody's ever asked us before if a nonprofit could do this. And so she walked us through about a 3-week long process and many forms, creating the forms as we went along. And so we were able the very next year to accept food stamps for our farmers. And we figured as long as we were dragging a big phone line across the roof of that complex out to the parking lot to take food stamps, our EBT, that we might as well take debit and credit too. And then Project Fresh and Senior Project Fresh and
That
WIC
became a
coupons.
prototype statewide.
Yeah, it
Absolutely.
did. They're now, what is it,
Absolutely.
80 or so markets
It's, in a
now?
lot of places, it's the difference between a market making it and not.
Yes, it is. And MIFMA, Drew Montree's organization, located here in Lansing, actually works really hard in advocates for farmers markets, but has been working really hard to increase the number of markets that are accepting food stamps. Also, the double up food bucks, which are a huge benefit to under-resourced
I'm
folks.
going to thank Joan for coming tonight. I'm going to do her a favor. I'm going to take her off the hook while I now say something really nice about Drew Montre. And but you're probably not going to want to be on the hook for this. I want to give Drew of the Michigan Farmers Market Association high marks for being the only vote on the Ag Commission
Yes.
against those GAMPs, which took away right to farm protection for livestock in urban areas. So all of you people who will be losing your chickens this summer, we had Randy Zellinger, the chicken felony criminal here on the show a few weeks ago. And he's in big hot water now because they've taken away all the protection of the right to farm law against you having bees in the city or having chickens in the city. And I think it's a disaster. But Drew stood up, and she was a stand-up person and was the only vote against that.
She's
change
pretty
in the laws.
amazing. We're glad that she's there. She's a
Yes.
farmer,
Oh yeah, she's
Yeah,
got
she's
10
great.
pence farm out in Bath.
Now,
She's
before
just great. Yes, one more thing.
One more thing. I just want to let your listening audience know that the annual Allen Neighborhood Center Hunter Park Garden House is one of our projects. And the garden house is holding its big annual plant sale on May 31st. So if you want to get wonderful starts for your vegetable garden or your flower garden or your herb garden,
Yeah.
come on by the greenhouse on Saturday, the 31st. It's part of the Be a Tourist in your own hometown celebration. But it's we always get a big crowd, and it's going to be great fun. We're going to have music at the greenhouse, and
Oh, wonderful.
and
And it's
tours.
such a late season that is the safe date
Yeah,
to
yes,
plant.
it is.
And
Yes,
we
it
hope
is.
it's safe
Yes,
this
it
year.
is.
Yeah.
Thank you both
Thank
so
you
much
so
Joan.
much.
bringing
Keep up
me
the
on. I
good
really
work.
appreciate it. Thank you.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. And now we're going to be joined by Barb Swartz, who is it's going to be an interesting segment. We finished off our month-long focus on autism last week, and we are now changing and shifting our focus to the issue of Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's is something that makes as I look around, Bill and I sitting here with the gray hair thinking, that's the crowd, boy, that's the one that is worried. And I don't know anybody in our age category who doesn't worry about concerns, am I vulnerable? Am I going to get Alzheimer's? Or will I be a caregiver? Is there somebody in my family that I should be looking at? And we've invited Barb here tonight, and she's agreed to go through some of the warning signs with us because I think that's critically important to know what it is we should be on the lookout for. Welcome, Barb, and maybe you can get us started in telling us what we need to know.
Absolutely, really happy to have the opportunity to be here. We are always very pleased to be able to get information out to folks through any kind of media venue. There is, 500, well, no, we've got 5 million, almost 5.5 million people in the nation with Alzheimer's today. We're expecting that to triple by the middle of the century if we don't find a way to either delay this thing or crack the nut completely. But we would just want folks to understand when you need to be concerned. There's a lot of mystery out there, a lot of
Yeah.
misconception about what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's. When do I really need to be concerned? Is this a senior moment like everyone experiences, or is this something that I need to take to my doctor? So those are the things that we want to talk about. We've got research-based warning signs that we would want to review with folks. And the first one of those is just memory loss that disrupts the way a person normally moves through their life. All of a sudden, maybe a friend or a family member has post-it notes on their drawers or cupboards identifying what's inside them, or you see multiple calendars, or someone's carrying a recorder all of a sudden. They are understanding that they've got some memory loss going on, and it's just really starting to play havoc with them, keeping their appointments, keeping straight on who's called on the telephone, managing their own medications, that kind of thing. So we know that it's common to forget an appointment once in a while or forget a name as you're getting older, but to forget to the point that it's starting to interrupt the way you move through your life, that would be something we want you to take to the doctor. The second sign we talk about is challenges in planning or solving problems. A lot of times we'll get calls from adult children and say, I'm getting multiple calls from my mom during the day because she can't figure out how to use the remote anymore. There are folks that all of a sudden are having a hard time with numbers. They might have difficult times following recipes, budgeting, those kinds of things. So when someone has an occasional problem reconciling the checkbook, that's not the kind of thing we're talking about. We're talking about a change that renders a person unable to do those kinds of activities.
And these would be different than dementia.
Well, Alzheimer's disease is the leading cause of dementia.
Okay.
Okay. Dementia really isn't a medical diagnosis in and of itself. It's a description of a set of symptoms
Yeah.
where someone is having some sort of interruption cognitively. There's also often problems with either language or executive function, decision making, that kind of thing. But dementia, the thing about that we want people to understand is that even though Alzheimer's is the leading cause of dementia, there are many causes of dementia that don't have anything to do with the disease process. A urinary tract infection in an older adult, vitamin B12 deficiencies, thyroid problems, dehydration and malnutrition. These are all things that can look just like Alzheimer's disease. That is, they cause cognitive interruption, but if they're ferreted out and treated, the person returns to their normal functioning.
The reason I wanted to bring that up was that my late mother had had an adrenalectomy, so she had no adrenal glands. And so medication was always she had to be very careful about what she took so that she would stay in control. She went into a hospital for surgery. She went into the local hospital here. And because they changed her medication while she was recovering, and she had been very specific about exactly what it had to be, and they deviated from her protocol and figured they knew better. All of a sudden, then they diagnosed her with Alzheimer's, that it was sudden onset Alzheimer's, and they were headed to, literally put her into a nursing home. And I kept insisting that they at least try the protocol that she had laid out, and it was the medication from the adrenal glands.
Yeah,
and she came back in a snap.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times that it's medications that a person's already taking
Yes.
that's causing the problems.
Yes.
And just all of those things can be ferreted out. That's why we tell everyone, even if you go to your doctor with the warning signs I'm talking about tonight, and your doctor listens to that and wants to put you on a medication, there needs to be some testing to determine what's going on. So we want to talk
Thyroid is
about that
very
too.
tricky, even with testing.
Yes.
And so, I had a friend whose mother literally, the only reason they found out what was going on was when they were putting her into the home, they said, and did you bring your medications with you? And that's when they found out she was on thyroid, adjusting the medication, the thyroid medication got rid of the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not that uncommon a story.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still mysterious then what's causing Alzheimer's?
Yes, it certainly is. In fact, we don't have
a test.
Well, we don't have a test, number one. There is a test for younger onset Alzheimer's. There's
there
a
is?
genetic test that's actually a
Uh-huh.
determinant test, but not for late onset, which is what we're talking about tonight, symptoms 65 and older. Okay, we're seeing more and more people being diagnosed with Alzheimer's who are much younger than that, in their 40s, still raising their kids and working. But the disease process that we're really talking about tonight is late onset Alzheimer's, where you wouldn't see symptoms until a person's 65, even though there already have been changes going on in the brain 15 or 20 years prior. We know
Oh.
that now. So yeah, we don't have a prevention program to sell because people can do everything right and still come down with the darn thing.
Yeah.
Can still develop Alzheimer's. So should I
Yes,
Yep,
let's
keep
keep
should I
going
keep
through.
going here? The third sign that we talk about is difficulty completing familiar tasks. So these are things that folks have done by rote as adults. I had a gal call and say, my husband's made a pot of coffee every morning of his adult life. The other day he came down, opened up the cupboard and stood and stared at the coffee pot. And it wasn't until I walked up behind him and said, Phil, get a filter and let's get this show on the road. So simple things, dialing a telephone,
It's
writing a
functional.
check. Yes, things that have been just automatic in the past all of a sudden become problematic. That is a change we'd be worried about. People can get confused with time or place. That's the fourth warning sign. I don't know how many of the listeners have ever heard of Alzheimer's disease described as retroactive amnesia, but it's a really apropos description because people lose their current memories first because the disease starts in the short-term memory center of the brain called the hippocampus, and they lose memories backwards over time. So an 80-year-old woman might see her 50-year-old daughter walk in. She has moved to a point in the dementia journey where she is herself a younger woman than her daughter. So all of a sudden, this person that looks familiar and safe and familial can't be a daughter. It must be a mother or a
Right.
sister. So we see that kind of change. So the confusion with time or place can be because of that piece of the disease, that feature of the disease. People get confused about the year, the season, the time of day, all of those things. Another change that we are concerned about is when someone starts having trouble understanding visual images or knowing their place in the world physically. Someone who is having visual changes that go along with Alzheimer's might start having troubles with contrast or color, which has a lot of implications for driving. You might see somebody who's always had a really strong, steady gait, put a hand along the wall for another point of reference. The reason these things happen is because it's not just memory that's affected in the brain with Alzheimer's disease. All powers of thought are affected. So perception, which is the way the brain processes what it sees and hears, that's also harmed. So a person with Alzheimer's disease might look at a patterned rug with a dark center and feel like they need to walk around the edges because it looks like a hole. Or they'll see a high gloss floor and it looks like it's wet. They don't want to step on that. So we know
That's
people's,
one I'm not familiar with.
yes, we know that people's perception, that is their ability to accurately process what they're seeing and hearing, that changes with the disease as well.
I'm not familiar with the visual changes. That's
Mhm.
interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, Bill, you had some experience with that in your family.
Absolutely, that same circumstance about something dark on the floor
Oh,
would
really?
absolutely stop.
Wow.
And that was before we knew what we know now.
Right.
But it was kind of, why is that happening?
Yeah. And hallucinations are, a common symptom for people with the disease. And what we want people to understand is that you can't correct people to the point where they're not going to see what they're seeing. I mean, we need to try to meet people where they are.
What are the percentage of people older than 65 who will, at some point in their remaining years, have these symptoms?
1 in 8.
1 in 8.
1 in 8. And if you live to be 85, it's 1 in 3.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ouch.
So you can see the risk really grows exponentially as we get older.
And you were quoting another statistic about women, much to my surprise.
Yes. If you're 60 years old and live in the USA, you are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's in your lifetime as breast cancer.
One of the things we've wondered about is that are we seeing increasing rates? Is it a combination of better diagnoses and also rising rates?
Yes, I think it's a combination of better diagnoses and more people coming into the age of risk.
Oh, because
And we're just going to, I mean, this is the concern with the bankruptcy of Medicaid and Medicare, is that this is the most expensive disease in the nation.
Right.
Okay. And we've got people coming up into age of risk in thousands
Droves.
because of the boomers. Yes,
Right.
absolutely. So we're looking at a real serious situation, not only in terms of having the doctors to deal with the diagnoses, having the care facilities to deal with the late stages of the disease process, having such a strong group of people right now who really are advocating for services for folks in their homes as opposed to having them,
Right.
leave for care in a dependent care setting.
I look at somebody like Ronald Reagan, who certainly had the resources and all the support systems around him that anybody would ever hope to have, and probably one of the most dedicated caregivers in his wife, right? But I mean, he lived many years in really kind of bad shape. And
Oh.
the toll it took on the family, I mean, money is not even a complete insulator against the toll that this
Oh,
takes.
it absolutely is not.
Yeah.
I mean, people with every financial resource are still dealing with anywhere from 3 to 20 years of caring for someone. No one survives this disease. We
Right.
we
You
don't
don't get
have
better.
survivors. That's right.
No.
I did a breast cancer walk in memory of a sister I lost, and one of the most powerful things about that walk was all the survivors
Right.
that were with us.
Right.
You go to a walk to end Alzheimer's, there are no survivors there. There are people living with the disease. There are caregivers who are caring for someone with the disease, but we do not have survivors yet. And of course, that's something that we're working towards every day.
We're looking at all sorts of potential risk factors. And one of the things that was interesting that I ran across, that I have a dedicated person on one of the forum lists that I'm on. When mad cow disease hit in England, there was a very small number of cases, and it's a brutal disease. I mean, you do see little holes in the brain.
Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
Yeah, Creutzfeldt-Jakob. And there's many people who feel that there's been some sort of low-level kind of CJD operating that's being misdiagnosed as Alzheimer's because we're really not confronting some of the problems. So part of the challenge, is there a fundraising wing to do investigations, continuing to look for cause? Because
Oh,
it seems until we
absolutely.
get a cause, we're really shooting in the dark, as you say. You don't know what risk factors to
Yeah.
change.
There's lots of research going on globally, and really that's one of the pieces of the Alzheimer's Association that's just for me makes me so proud to work for the organization is that we've got such a hand in global research now. We've got roundtables across the world. We've got researchers who are not shrouding their outcomes in mystery and secrecy. They are meeting and sharing their outcomes real time so we can move this thing forward. We've got a new physician sitting at the FDA now who's going to help us move clinical trials through faster. The fundraising arm of the association really is our signature event, the Walks to End Alzheimer's. We have 12 in our 23 county chapter. They all occur in the fall, August, September. And they are going on all over the United States during that month. There's over 700 walks across the United States. And that's the signature fundraising event that fuels the motor that keeps the association going. But we're the largest funder of Alzheimer's funding outside of the National Institute of Health and the government of China.
Government of
Wow.
China.
Isn't that interesting?
That
Yeah,
is
it sure
interesting.
is.
Mhm.
So I know the one medication, I've heard there's now a second medication. There are relatively
There are four.
few.
There are
Oh, there are
four medications that were
Okay.
developed specifically for Alzheimer's disease, and they're moderately effective for a moderate number of people.
And
No
they
silver
really are
bullet.
delaying symptoms.
They don't really even delay symptoms. They don't change the outcome of the disease. What they do for some people is provide a few years of some cognitive brightness that they might not otherwise
Mhm.
have. We know that if people are on those medications and are taken off them without a titration plan, that they can kind of step down and lose some cognition there. But again, we don't have a fix for this thing, even with the medications that we have.
Although I do have a friend who's been working closely with her mother, and between a combination of switching to a very healthy diet, a lot of exercise, a lot of stimulation, they really feel she has actually regained a step
Mhm.
and maybe is slowing down some of the progress of the disease.
Well,
So,
we do talk about 4 hallmarks of,
Alright.
Best chances to stay healthy
Yeah.
cognitively, and that's social connectivity
yes,
for sure,
huge.
physical activity,
Yeah.
mental stimulation, and I'll have people say all the time, "Well, I do the New York Times crossword puzzle every day," and we'll say, "Well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about lifelong learning, using your non-dominant hand, taking a different route home, learning a new language, a new instrument."
Ah,
Those kind of things are what are going to keep you safe. Mediterranean diet is being touted right now as the most healthy diet.
mhm.
Lots of, leafy greens, antioxidant fruits, fatty fish. So those are
Head
things
down
that
to
are
see
being
Joan
touted.
Nelson at her place.
That's
yeah.
right. There you go. There you go.
What are some of the other things we should-
The sixth sign we talk about is new problems with words, whether it's in speaking or writing. And someone all of a sudden might have a really difficult time either finding the words that they want to use. They might be repeating questions to you or repeating stories. They might be substituting words in their speech, or they might have been brilliant conversationalists who all of a sudden one-on-one are still okay, but when they get in a group where there's a thread of conversation moving among people, they're kind of lost and they'll stand
I
back.
think that's called being on Facebook too long.
Yeah, I don't think they should be on Facebook, right?
Shortens your attention span and you can't follow the thread anymore.
Then another thing that happens, and how many of us haven't done this, is misplacing something. And then with Alzheimer's disease or dementia, you lose the ability to retrace your steps because it's the most recent thing you did, and that's what you're forgetting. So someone with
Ah,
dementia can put something somewhere, and not only will they forget that they put it there, and usually it's an odd place, but if you're in the environment as they're trying to make sense of it, they're going to accuse you of moving it or taking
oh,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
And that happens very often. And again, we'll tell caregivers all the time, don't say, I would never do that. I love you. Say instead, I'm sorry you can't find it. Let me help.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Divert the attention.
That's
somewhere
right.
sometimes.
That's right. The next one we would talk about is decreased or poor judgment. You know, everybody
All
makes
of
a
these I've
bad
had
decision
lifelong, of course.
once in a
I
while,
mean,
but
I
we're
remember back to 20.
well, we're talking about people who all of a sudden start making consistently bad decisions.
But you should know
They're
they're
giving
20.
money away. They're propositioning people outside of their marital relationship. I mean,
That
all
was
kinds of
20s,
things
yeah,
can
that was
happen.
20s.
Yep, yep. Giving a lot of
Not a
money
good example.
away.
Well,
Then-
so there's probably a prevalence then of scams.
Oh,
that's-
absolutely.
That's why they
Sure.
work so well
I mean,
after people over.
for seniors in general,
Yeah, but you get it.
people are at risk just because we consider seniors vulnerable. Just because if someone calls them and is polite, they're
Mhm.
willing to cooperate in any way they're asked.
That's
There's a double
that's the older
whammy.
seniors, not my generation.
Right.
Seniors.
Correct. It is. It is
Yeah,
older. Well,
Yeah, because we're not polite.
I'm almost.
Never were.
Pretty sure. Hello, goodbye.
This
Oh.
is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Barb Swartz about some of the hallmark symptoms of Alzheimer's. How many more do we have?
Just two.
Just two.
Yeah.
We need to do this so we can,
All right.
Yes.
The ninth one.
before I forget.
The ninth one we talk about is withdrawal from all activities. I don't care if it's faith, family, social, sporting, hobby, anything. People recognize changes in the front end of this thing and they know they're making errors. Who wants to put themselves out there to be found out?
Right.
If I had a nickel for every time somebody said to me, all they want to do is sit and watch TV, I could volunteer for the association instead of work for the association because people aren't going to make a mistake watching TV.
Right.
They're not going to forget where the bathroom is or forget what someone's name is or what that child's relationship is to them.
Yeah.
So withdrawal is another one. And then the last one we talk about are changes in an adult's and older adults' moods and personality. I mean, we're pretty much who we are, you know, and if we see dramatic changes in ourselves or someone we care about related to mood or personality, that's another warning sign. Because again, it's not just memory that's being eroded in the brain. It's all powers of thought. And powers of thought give us our personality and mood.
Sandra Day
Emotion.
O'Connor had discovered in the facility that her husband was in that he was now a different person and he'd fallen in love with another woman.
Yeah.
And she couldn't hold it against him because
Right.
she said he was not who he was.
Mhm.
She would go visit him and she liked him, but I mean that's how profound the changes can be.
Mhm.
Very, very.
So that if a person feels that they have one or several of these, they should see a family doctor first.
Yeah, they can see a family doctor, and I'll tell people all the time, if it's me or somebody I care about, I might not go to my private doctor, I might not go to my personal care physician, I might go to a memory clinic because
Yeah.
there's no chance that you won't get the right testing at a clinic.
Right.
Okay, there are a lot of physicians out there who are uncomfortable with the disease, who are uncomfortable talking to families or individuals about the disease, who are maybe willing to do a mini mental, which is a little short mental status exam in the office and decide that that's enough to diagnose. No, we want folks to understand there's a battery of tests. Not one test is going to diagnose Alzheimer's. And if you're going through memory testing, there should be neurological testing, there should be memory testing, there should be a scan at this point, there should be lab work so we can look at things like depression and thyroid and urinary tract issues, all of those things. So we want folks to understand it's not one test.
One last bit of advice. A good friend of mine, Bob Cross, who was the head of the Alumni Association for a while, the group, his dad, he called him one day and his dad wasn't there. His dad lived down south. And what had happened is his father had wandered away, and it took them almost 4 months to find him. He had literally disappeared. They found him in a homeless shelter. They have no idea how he got there a few states away. And people need to sit down. I mean, I just sent my sister my annual email that I send her where I tell her where all my bank accounts are. I send it to my husband and to my sister just in case. And, because he didn't even know what he owed in rent, what to do. I mean, people, as they begin to have problems as we get older, we need to start documenting and sharing with relatives so they can step in when they need to.
I mean, that's right. That's a good idea for any of us.
Any of us,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Barbara. We will hope to have you back soon, and we'll continue our conversation about
Wonderful.
more about what people can do.
And we're gonna
If,
have
can I
guests.
just say too, if people do have questions
Yeah.
about memory loss,
Yeah.
jump onto our website, alz.org, or you can call our 800 number, which is 800-272-3900. That's a 24/7 helpline number. You can come to us with any question or concern you have and have us help you out with that.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And now we're going to switch gears, and here's the instrument that everybody
Hey.
should take up.
The ukulele. Real
Thank
quick on the
Yes.
Alzheimer's, I don't know if you got a chance to see the Alive Inside movie at the Capital City Film
No, I didn't.
Festival. It was amazing. I mean, it really brought you to tears. There, you were talking about the withdrawal. They, a lot of these people were in memory clinics or more institutionalized almost, and really were like in a corner, And this guy, he's bringing little iPods to everybody with headphones and playing music back from their childhood, and they're
Oh,
moving and grooving and smiling, and it was just amazing.
Music
It was an
stays with you,
amazing
doesn't
movie.
it?
It does.
The
It
arts
does.
in general is
Yep.
a way to
Is
stay
a way
connected
to,
with
yeah.
people.
I work. I mean, this is a little different, but I work with a lot of special ed students, and it's amazing to see these kids that maybe before you might get a little eye movement or a little something, and then all of a sudden they're moving a little more and this and that. And yeah, music's real powerful for,
I just have to look for
For
that
that.
restaurant that's going to let me play that heavy metal.
you can do that.
It's going to be a very small, little, very
You know,
defined niche market.
Just, it's going to be when we're all up there. That's what it's going to be.
Rammstein blasting
There you
24
go.
hours a day, that'll be good.
There you go.
But there's a slightly different kind of music you're here to introduce us
That's
to.
true. That's true.
It's
I'm
hard
here.
to do Du hast mich an Anouk.
Well, actually, I've played a fair amount of I haven't played any what's Rammstein,
Rammstein. You can
but
do Anderson.
I have done AC/DC.
Have you?
Oh yeah. You shook me all night long.
Oh,
It sounds
cool.
great on ukulele. I can't quite pull it out right
Wow.
this second. But no, you can play anything on the ukulele.
You
It's
can,
it's
can't you?
really
Play us
pretty
something,
much the
yes.
most versatile instrument. Well, one thing I wanted to do, because I was a little lax on my Facebook birthday notifications.
Oh, no, don't do that. Oh, God.
It's good. Happy birthday
Oh.
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bonnie.
From 1 to 100.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
So,
Happy birthday to you.
7
Thank
tenths.
you very much. For those of you who haven't taken the time, you can go to Lansing Online News and read my article that
Yeah.
says 50 may be the new 40, but 70 is still 70.
70.
I did. I liked that article. That was
Yeah,
good. I
that's
just saw that
Yeah.
today.
Yeah,
So,
it's the same, yeah.
Mighty Uke Day is this
When is
weekend.
the day?
It starts on Friday, May 9th.
The day actually stretches over.
Well,
Weekend.
it's one of those long days. Actually,
It
it's
is.
stretching into Sunday now.
I know, now, yeah.
So,
Longest day.
but we start off Mighty Uke Day. This is our 4th year of the Mighty Uke Day Festival. And the name of the festival came from the Mighty Uke movie, which is a wonderful documentary produced by Tony Coleman and Margaret Maher of Toronto. And they came 4 years ago, said, "Oh, can we show the movie?" And I go, "Yeah, I've been trying to get you guys, to come." And I thought, well, we ought to have some music and stuff. So we just did a thing at Sir Pizza, and the Heftones played, and Rachel Davis, and a couple other people. And no budget, no nothing. Everybody goes, "Oh, this is great. What are you doing next year?" And I'm like,
Uh-oh.
"Next year? So we every year it's built up a little bit. And last year we had James Hill, who's one of the top ukulele players in the world, and it just kind of kicked it into another gear. And this year is just going to be absolutely crazy. We start at noon Friday with the very last WLNZ Radio Diner show at Sir Pizza.
Oh, really?
So from 12 to 1, we're going to have this big
Oh.
group strum of all these players coming from Canada and all around the Midwest and the South, and have a couple solo acts. And then there's a couple workshops during the day. We have Michigan, the Great Uke State. I coined that term.
Oh.
Forget those lakes. We got ukes, and which features some of the best artists from around Michigan, including Magdalene Fossum,
Oh,
the
she's
Springtails, Gerald Ross,
Yeah.
the Fabulous Heftones.
Yeah.
And then Saturday, all heck breaks loose, starting at 10 o'clock with a big strum at Sir Pizza. And then there's workshops, open mic, featured performers, impromptu jams, a free children's workshop at Prue's Pets at 11 o'clock. Hopefully the weather permits, and out at the courtyard of the Old Town General Store, we'll have some good jams going on. And the wonderful thing about this all, it's getting to the point where we're raising a good amount of money that has helped fund some music programs in the schools and communities.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, we started, I started a ukulele program with 4th, 5th, and 6th graders this year at Sheridan Road School
Oh,
on the north side
wonderful.
there in Lansing. They're called the Sheridan Road Mighty Jukes.
Are they going to be there?
They won't be there, but my primetime strummers will be there from the East Lansing Primetime Senior Center, which Mighty Uke Day helped kickstart that program. And one of the things I'm most proud of is we have, there's a nonprofit organization called Guitars in the Classroom. And what they do is teach classroom teachers to use music in their rooms. And as you know, we've had some budget cuts here in the Lansing schools the last couple years. And this is such a great program. It brings guitars and ukuleles to the classroom teachers, and they can use music to enhance their lessons and to have some fun with their kids. It's not a substitute for music teachers, but it's another way to bring some more music into the classroom in a lot of these hard-hit districts across the state.
We need to change this focus on STEM to STEAM and put an A in for arts.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the new focus on that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and the money we raise at Mighty Uke Day helps fund these ongoing programs and expand them
I
too,
went to your
hopefully.
fundraiser at the Avenue. It's so much fun.
It was awesome.
Better get them to play.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You close it out, Bonnie,
All
and we'll
right.
let the show
All right.
completely.
So May 9th and
May
10th,
9th
Mighty
and
Uke
10th.
Day, www.mightyukeday.com.
And if you head to Old Town on that day,
There's
you
stuff
will-
everywhere.
you'll be able to
Elderly,
find
Sir
it.
Pizza,
You can't miss it.
Creole, Micah, Old Town General Store, Prue's Pets, and wherever else. And
What
here's
is the
the little.
tune we'll hear?
I got a song. You know the song "Downtown" by Petula
Yes.
Clark. I changed the words a little bit.
I thought you might.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go to Old Town. When you got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help by knowing Old Town. Just listen to the strumming of the mighty ukulele. Linger at Sir Pizza with the people singing gaily. How can you lose? The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares, and go to Old Town. Things will be great when you're in Old Town.
Friday night and
No
Saturday.
finer place for sure.
Come back Monday night,
Old Town.
7 o'clock.
Everything's
Tuesday night.
waiting
Join us
for
Lansing
you.
Online News Radio. This is LCC
Old
Radio,
Town.
WLNZ 89.7. And
Old
Beth Hassan
Town.
is reminding you about Mighty Uke Day. We'll see you
Old
next week. Thank you.
Town. Old Town. Little cha-cha-cha.
Yes, this will be fun. We're going to have a good time down there in Old Town, and don't forget to come back next Monday night. This is Lansing Online News Radio with Bonnie Bucqueroux and Bill Castanier. You can catch our webcast on our website at lansingonlinenews.com and also pick it up on YouTube. And don't forget about Mighty Uke Day this weekend in Old Town. And then you will also join us next Monday night. We will be joined by Rena Risper talking about the New Citizens Press. We'll have more information also about the issue of Alzheimer's here in our community. And we want to tell everybody to make sure to visit the Ingham County Treasurer's site to learn about some dates for workshops being held on foreclosures. We're hoping Lynn Martinez will join us next week and give us some more information about those upcoming forums in our community. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next Monday night. Thank you very much.